Hi greedy 3Ders and welcome to Croft Manor, I mean the greedy 3D man cave. And you can see why I made that mistake, because today we're going to be making the Sanix Lara Croft from the Tomb Raider series. I'll show you how to make it and paint it from base to model, and we'll go through it in a step-by-step process as usual. Now today is a little bit special. Stay tuned to the end. We're going to have a competition today. I'll tell you everything at the end about what you need to do to win a really special prize. Now the first part of the procedure is always checking that the pieces fit together. We don't want to be finding this out too late. The two large pieces, I've actually used some resin welding and check my other video out to see just how you do that. A little bit of rubbing down just to make sure that all the hands and the feet fit together. And once you're happy that they fit together, your next stage is the priming. Now I'm going to just use some matte black from the Army Painter Air, and I'm just going to give them a generous coating all across. This does two things. Gives me a base to work on and covers up that resin nicely. Now I'm going to make sure that all the parts are primed, including the hands, the boots and all the extremity bits, and make sure you don't miss anything. Now those of you that watch videos of mine before will know how I do the skin, and this is the colour triad from Army Painter Air, and I'm going to use the Nomad Flesh as the first layer to go down. Now I try to work from the top down, covering her all over, but using the lighter parts at the top and the darker parts at the bottom. I'll try not to put too much under her arms or under her eyes or at the bottom of her chin. And once I put that first layer on, it goes on everything in the same way, trying to work out where the light's coming from and hitting everything exactly the same way. Moving on now to Barbarian Flesh, the mid-tone colour, to the colour triad, and I'm going to just work at the top and look at the top of her arms, her chest, the top of her shoulders, and work down. And that's the whole point of this colour triad, really, to try to give an impression of where the light is hitting her and change the depth and the variation of the skin. Same again on all the extremity bits and bobs. And finally moving on to Wildling Flesh, the lightest of the colours, and I'm just going to work right again from the top down as usual, just concentrating on where the light is going to be hitting her. Now once you put your final colour on, we're going to use some Alien Purple. We're going to water this down really well to turn it into a wash, and I'm just going to wash her all over to give her a little bit of a purpley skin blood colour. Moving on to the Rawhide Brown now for the boots, and the boots will get a good layer of brown over the black. I'm going to leave some of the black poking through just to add to the effect of it, but I'm going to do a lot of work on the boots, as you'll see a little bit later on. A bit of bull whack brown, and I'm just going to highlight some of the areas of the boots. Again, that's not the last you'll see of these boots. I had a great deal of fun doing the boots. Moving on to the abysmal black for the eyes, and again, anyone that's watched my videos will know I like to give the eyes a shade of black, so just stay within the eye line boundary and give them a gentle layer all over. A really fine brush is required for this, a little bit of care, no coffee, as you'll be a tremble when you put it in, and just shape the eyes with the black. And I'll show you exactly why we're doing this if you don't already know in a few minutes time, but take your time with this stage. It's a little bit fiddly and don't get it all over your flesh. Moving on to her lips, and I'm just going to use some real pure red for her lips. I really want them to show out, so that's what she looks like at the moment, like zombie Lara Croft. Quite used to seeing this at this stage, aren't we? Now for the fun part, take that fine brush again and get some white with a hint of blue in there, and that will show you why we've done it, to put some eyeliner around her eyes, give her a little bit of makeup look. Now pop in those pupils, take your time with this part, and that's what we're aiming for, really, just nice full pupils on her face, making sure she's looking in the right direction. My Lara's eyes are going to be green, so I'm just going to use some of that green paint, and I'm going to dollop it in to the centre of her iris, just leaving a little bit of black around the outside. Take your time with this, that fine brush, no shaking if you can help it. We all hate doing eyes, don't we? We absolutely hate it. Okay, moving on to Martian Brown, the trusty Martian Brown, to do her hair, and I'm going to start off with a really fine brush to coat it. Now this brown is going to be an undercoat, if you like, to her hair, because I'm going to use something a little different on it. So just take your time, paint the edges really carefully, don't get it on your flesh, and once you're happy, get that big brush in there and dollop it on. Now, speed paint dark wood is my secret for the hair. A layer of that on the top and voila, look at that. The hair looks really contoured and textured with highlights and lowlights. I absolutely love these speed paints and they do great jobs on hair, especially on top of a brown base. Now, I didn't want to give Lara a blue top, so I'm using some feral green from the air paints and I'm just going to paint this on. I love the way these air paints actually paint on. You're going to need a couple of layers, but they do brush on really, really lovely. As you can see there, it's quite pleasurable to do that. I'm now moving on to a little bit of our faithful leather brown, and I'm just going to give her leather straps on the top of her body, a little bit of a once over, trying really, really carefully not to get it on that green that I've just painted, and try to make sure that you get it all around the strap as well, especially the top and the bottom edge of it. It does make a hell of a difference. Her necklace has a leather strap, so I'm taking my time to paint that up too, and that's not the last of the leather. There's quite a bit of leather on the bottom part of her, but we're just sticking to the top part for this stage. I'm just touching back up the green now, giving it its second coat, and you can see that it's making quite a difference. Now, I'm not going to give it this is not the final coat. I'm going to give it a dry brush of a really lighter colour just in the highlighted areas of this, but for now that base layer's on and it looks really nice. Speed paint hardened leather I'm going to use on the trousers. Now, I wanted to give her a kind of leathery trouser look, so I've just put this speed paint right on the top of the very lightly coated prime that I've given her trousers. Now, some of the light will come through and I'm quite happy with that because you'll see how this really is an amazing paint to give you some leather looking trousers. Look at the highlights, look at the lowlights. Again, speed paint, one of my favourite new finds over the last few weeks. Absolutely amazing. Just to make her eyes and her lips ping and pop, I'm going to use a little bit of varnish. Make sure your brush is clean and also make sure all the paint is dry, and blob it into those eyes, as you can see, one, then the other, and then stop. The job is done regarding the varnishing. Back to leather brown now, and I'm going to finish doing those straps, taking my time to get all of them and making sure that I try not to overspill anywhere, using a little bit of the skeleton bone now on the bandages on her hand. This isn't the only colour that I'm going to be using on her bandages. I'm also going to be using some speed paint. I'm going to use some of the skeleton speed paint there, as you can see, and that will just give it a really dirty, used, my bandages filthy look. Now onto the boots, and I'm going to use some skeleton bone to dry brush over the boots, giving them a general coat in the areas where they would take some wear and tear, especially on the front toe caps and on the sides. And I'm also going to use some speed paint, that dark wood speed paint, to just colour in the laces. It took a little bit of time to do this, but look at the end result, absolutely lovely. A little bit of silver on the lace holes as well. Also going to dry brush with some skeleton bone her trousers, just to give those highlighted areas another little bit of a outer edge of highlight, and it makes all the difference, it really does. Moving on to a little bit of the silver, as you can see there, just to do her buckles. There's only a few buckles on Lara, and it does make a hell of a difference with the finer points. I think with these models, making the smaller details pop out really does make all the difference to a basic model. Now I'm using some of the wash here, some dark tone on the leather, and that just ages it and gives it a real used and battered effect, and that's exactly what we want. It's really good on the leather brown and it gives a great effect, as you can see here. Just liberally plop it on there, nothing special about it, layer it on really thick. Moving on to her arrows, and I'm going to give the case for the arrows a little bit of leather brown and along with the bow, and also I gave it a little bit of the wash on top. And here's the end result. Here's all the bits and pieces before we do the final assembly. As you can see, she's looking nice. I also gave the skin a little bit of wash in flesh wash. I put it on and wiped it off just to age her up a little bit and make her look a little bit like she's been robbing a few tombs. And there's all the bits and pieces ready for assembly. Now onto the base, and I printed this in PLA, and I've just given it a black undercoat, as you can see there. And using a bit of regiment grey on my airbrush, I just went all around the stones and the brickwork at the bottom just to highlight it up and give it a little bit of a base colour. Some of the brown is coming through that I painted the tree trunk with. I just used a brown spray can, and I'm just going to use a little bit of a lighter colour grey now to highlight some of those stones. Moving on to the rawhide, and I'm going to just give the tree, especially at the bottom, a little bit of a once over, and I'm going to use this just generally all over the tree just to change some of the colour depth of the original colour, and also going to lighten that up with a bit of bullwhack brown as well. All helps to add to the effect of it, as you can see. A little bit of angel green now, and again, you know, there will be some green on here, some algae, some moss, so I'm going to put it along the stones, and I'm going to give the tree a little bit of a splash of it also. And skeleton bone with a dry brush, just a dry brush over the stones to give them a bit of an edge to them, just the final kind of effects now. And using finally some green tone wash, I'm just going to splodge it on, use that dry brush and brush it right into all the gaps to give it another little algae-fied look. We're nearly finished now, and I'm going to use the Army Painter Battlefields basing kit, get some of the glue that comes with it, splodge it on, get some of your grass. Now the grass effect is like a real fine powder, and sprinkle it onto the glue, rub it in with your fingers just to move it around a bit. Don't put too much on, we don't want to overdo it, we just want to make it look really nice. Put some up the tree as well, grass will grow up the tree, and get some of these little knots of grass, pop them on and add them here, there. Make sure you've covered the whole base, don't overdo it, we just want to take away from the grey a little bit, and that's done. Let's have a look now at the final reveal. Well, I hope you enjoyed the making of Lara Croft there, and as promised, it's competition time. Today, you can win this, the Logan Wolverine statue. It's all printed for you, the base, the model's all there. It's the model that I got from Sanix, and it will be shipping its way to you anywhere in the world as long as you do three things. 1, I need you to subscribe to the channel. 2, leave a comment, preferably a nice comment, and 3, just like this video. Once you've done those 3 things, in about 3 weeks time we'll be picking a name out of a hat randomly, and I will contact you and send you that model free, absolutely el gratis to you, just by doing those 3 things. I hope you've enjoyed this video today, and don't forget to enter that competition.